Having difficult conversations is an inevitable part of leadership. At some stage, you may have to fire a team member who isn't performing, give negative feedback to an employee, or tell an investor your business is losing money. Difficult conversations or tough conversations are a key leadership differentiator. And if you can have them, you'll stand out as a leader with great potential. But not everybody can have difficult conversations. Research by Globis found that 53% of managers avoid difficult conversations because they don't have the training. And 56% avoid them because they lack experience in handling them. The fact is, we avoid difficult conversations for a number of reasons. Sometimes it is because we lack the training, sometimes it's because we lack the experience, other times it's because we've had difficult conversations in the past and we haven't been very good at them. But the reality is, if you are going to lead, you need to be able to have difficult conversations when you need to. They help you grow as a leader, they help you address problems on your team so they can be resolved. They show other people in your team that you as a leader are willing to address toxic people that can damage morale in your team. I want you to gather up the courage to have difficult conversations when you need to and show everyone that you have leadership potential. So let's look at how you can have difficult conversations as a leader. The first way is to be honest and direct. Now, you might be tempted to tiptoe around the issue that you're dealing with and avoid having the difficult conversation simply because you don't want to hurt the other person, you don't want to offend them, or you may be afraid of retaliation. But this is not having a difficult conversation, this is avoiding a difficult conversation, and that is not what leaders do. In order to be seen as a leader, you need to have difficult conversations when you need to or when you want to. So when people try to deliver a difficult message or have a difficult conversation, what I find a lot of people do is they try to deliver their message in a subtle way. They try to avoid being direct, they try to avoid being honest and being clear about their message. But in reality, what this does is it confuses the other person. They're not clear on what your message is. They're not clear on what you're trying to tell them. They're not clear on what they've done wrong or what they should do instead. All they receive is a confused message when you try to tone it down and convey a subtle message. And it also drags it on. It makes it more painful for the other person to understand what your message is, and it makes it more painful for you as the communicator, as the leader. So to avoid pain all around for both you and the other person, you need to be honest, direct, and very clear with your message. I know this is really difficult to do, especially if you're not used to having difficult conversations, but skills in assertiveness will definitely help you out in this area. Now, I have some other videos on my channel about assertive communication. I will link to those in the description below so you can check them out. And I also have a Udemy course with thousands of students, and they have been very happy with this course that has really helped them become more assertive in their professional and also their personal life. So I'll link to that below as well. The second thing you do in a difficult conversation, once you have conveyed your message, is you listen with empathy. Now, this is not your time to talk. This is your time to listen, to give the other person the space to respond to what you've said and to express how they feel. This is a really, really important part of having difficult conversations. You need that two-way exchange between you and the other person. Maybe their side of the story is different from what you interpreted. Maybe it's different from what you heard somebody tell you, or different from what you thought. So you really need to give the other person the opportunity to explain their side, explain the story to you as they saw it. And they may be emotional during this time. Difficult conversations are very emotional for everybody involved, people giving the message and people receiving the message. So expect the other person to be emotional. Give them the space to convey their feelings, to feel what you're telling them. This is totally normal. Let them communicate their side of the story and what they're feeling as well. You can also use this time to ask them questions, to get more information from them, to get them to elaborate on how they see the issue, and just basically get them talking. By giving the other person the space to talk and by listening to them, you give them a really important basic human need. That is the need to be heard and understood. All of us need this in conversations and in our relationships. If your difficult conversation with the other person at work is simply you telling them what they've done wrong or what you want changed, and you never let them express their side of the story, they will never feel heard and understood, and it's likely that they will resent you as a leader. Now, you don't want that to happen in the workplace. You want to have good morale and good relationships with every person in your team. This is really important. important. So in order to do that, you need to listen and you need to make the other person feel that they are heard and understood. This will definitely win you points as a leader. The third thing you do is you explore the solutions, and this is where you present the solutions as you see it to the problem that you are experiencing. You can also invite the other person to share their thoughts on how they think the problem should be solved or how they feel the problem should be solved as well. It's really a two-way conversation you want to start igniting here. And especially if you want the other person to be on board with the solution, they need to be part of that solution. So their input and their ideas really count here. When you're exploring solutions for difficult situations or difficult problems, it really needs to be an agreement between you and the other person. So at this point in the conversation, it definitely needs to be a two-way exchange or brainstorm type of conversation so you can explore the best solutions. The fourth step is the follow-up. Now, this is just as important as having a difficult conversation in the first place. The follow-up obviously doesn't happen during the initial conversation. It happens maybe 1 week or 2 weeks afterwards. Following up helps you maintain a good working relationship with the person you had that conversation with. And of course, this is really important in any kind of workplace. So when you follow up with the other person, you need to see if they were satisfied with the outcome of the conversation. Obviously, if you just fired someone, the follow-up is probably not something you're going to do. But if you had to give negative feedback to someone, if you had to give some difficult suggestions to someone in your team who is still working with you, then the follow-up is really important. So were they satisfied with the conversation? And the next thing you want to ask about is the solution that they needed to put in place. Was there something that they needed to do? Was there some kind of action they needed to take? And how were they coming along with that? Ask them about their progress and also offer your help and your support if that's possible. This will really make you look like a supportive leader. And the fifth thing you do is you reduce the need for difficult conversations. This requires some shifts in the way that you manage and the way that you communicate to your team. So you need to make sure that you have psychological safety in your team. Ensure that every person in your team feels safe to convey their ideas or their opinions. This is one thing that can help to avoid difficult conversations in the first place. And by increasing positive feedback and having more empowering conversations with your team, it can really strengthen the bond with everyone and reduce the need for difficult conversations in the future. Basically, the idea behind this is if your team can openly and honestly talk with one another and also talk with you as a leader or as a manager, then it really reduces the need for any kind of difficult conversations in the future, mainly because problems are sorted out, they are ironed out before they become a big problem. So conversations, communication, getting everyone to be able to honestly and openly communicate with one another is a really important part of managing and dealing with difficult conversations. I hope these 5 tips will help you the next time you are approaching or having a difficult conversation. If you are a loyal subscriber, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. If you're new to this channel and you're watching for the very first time, then please don't forget to subscribe by hitting the button below this video. Every week I share videos to help you on your leadership journey. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next week.